Hey, welcome back. On my way home, and it's a little gloomy outside, a little rainy. And that's funny, isn't it? How you can sometimes tell when it's going to rain just based on how your body is reacting. I could feel the sinus pressure behind my eyes building all day long. I just knew it was going to rain at some point. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So let's jump into what we are here to talk about, which is unemployment numbers. And this is something I probably still don't fully understand, but something about it clicked for me today because I was really confused. I was confused as to why unemployment numbers seem to be reporting so good when it seems like everybody's looking for work these days. How is it possible that unemployment is at a very low rate when everybody needs workers? And jobs are in high supply, workers are in low supply, and everybody's quitting their jobs like I just talked about in a recent video. You can check that out if you're thinking about quitting your job. There's some really good information on how to consider all of the factors surrounding quitting your job. But for today, let's talk about the unemployment numbers. So I always thought that unemployment was sort of like a number to indicate how many people out there are available for work, right? And versus how many jobs are out there. And what I came to understand today is that it has very little to do with how many people are available to work, and more to do with the number of jobs filled versus the number of jobs available. And I'm going to give you an example, and this is sort of how I explained it to myself, and it came out really good for explanation. So I hope that this helps you as well become a little more financially educated on what this number means. So let's imagine that we live in a really small community. There's no job opportunities in this community, but there are 100 adult people who are available and of working age and available for work. So 100 job seekers. And our community gets really lucky, and Jeff Bezos decides that our spot is a prime location for Amazon's next warehouse, which will ironically bring 100 jobs into the community. Well, that sounds pretty good, right? 100 people looking for work and 100 jobs. But Amazon hasn't hired anybody yet. So their unemployment rate in this town is 100% because those 100 people are not working. Well, a week goes by, the interviews happen, and Amazon decides to hire 90 people and fill 90 of their 100 available jobs. Awesome. So 90 out of 100 is 90%. That leaves 10% of the jobs not filled. And that's what's called 10% unemployment in that community. Now, unfortunately, let's just say a global pandemic hits. And less people are buying Amazon. They're kind of saving their money, and there's not a lot of demand for the products. So Amazon decides that those last 10 positions don't need to be filled right now. They could do without them. And so they cut them out. So it looks really good on the unemployment numbers because now 90 out of 90 positions are filled, which is 100% employment and 0% unemployment for that community. But you still have the 10 people who are out of a job and not getting paid. And I think that's what most people don't realize is not included. It is the number of jobs available versus the number of jobs filled in a certain space. And it is not taking into account the people who are still looking for work. And I'm sure this is an overly simplified version. I'm leaving a lot of factors out of the actual unemployment numbers for the entire country, of course. But this is just how I wrapped my head around this concept. So, what does this mean? Well, I think it makes a lot of sense as to why so many companies are looking for workers, but it sounds like America's doing pretty good. It's because if you believe the last job report that has been released in January of this year, that over 300,000 jobs were lost. So eliminated. Not like people were employed and now are unemployed. It's the job is just not there anymore. And that can happen when companies downsize. It can happen when companies go out of business. And what happens to those people? They don't just disappear, right? They go into the unemployed status. But this isn't a rate based on the unemployed status. This is a rate based on the available jobs versus the jobs that are filled. So you've got all of the same people that were working before working, except for those that were cut. And now, just like in our example, the number of jobs available is lower, but the number of filled positions is a higher portion of that number. And thus the unemployment rate is perceived as low, even though there's lots and lots of people still out there without jobs. And you can see how this number and the way you present this information can sort of manipulate the way you see how the economy is right now. Because if you are keeping track of anything, you know that there's a lot of speculation in the economy. There's a lot of volatility in the stock market. I don't claim to know a lot about the stock market. I don't want to know a lot about the stock market. But you know that in times like this, there's a lot of speculation about the next recession and how soon it's going to come. And inevitably it will come because markets go in cycles, and we've seen our highs, and now that they, whoever they are, say it's time for a low, right? But at every turn, we're being presented with, oh, yes, well, the unemployment numbers are really good. Well, these numbers are really good. But a lot of times we don't know, as the average human being going to work, feeding our families, putting roofs over our heads, we don't know how those numbers are being manipulated. And I think in that education comes your success, because that is the important stuff to know. Anybody can spew out statistics, but when you know how those statistics are gotten, then you're more educated on what you can do next. So yeah, unemployment numbers may be really low, but it may just be because there's absolutely less jobs out there, which would mean that the economy is decreasing in growth. It's not growing as fast as it used to be, which means that anything you have invested in companies that were booming could be in jeopardy. And I believe, obviously the government and the federal bank does not want people to panic, because panic, I've said it before, panic is what precedes a recession or a really big downturn in the economy. It's when people panic, when you put emotion into your money. But they're sort of the catalyst for all of this, because when people find out that they're being lied to or manipulated, then that puts an emotion into it. That puts anger and fear and distrust into your money. And that's a place where emotion does not belong, especially negative emotions like that. So those are just my thoughts. I hope this helped you out. If it did, give me a thumbs up. I can make more videos on explanations like this. I can do one on inflation if that's something that interests you. Leave me a thumbs up and a comment below on what you would like to hear next. Until next time, I'll see you again. Bye.